Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by former Kerry footballer Liam Brosnan to run through all the weekend's football action, discuss all the weekend's big football and talking points from Kerry's big win over Cork, Galway and Donegal recording big wins as well as the two big results in the Under-20 Football Championship. We'll touch on them a little bit as well. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by Declan Kirby GAA Star, the best GAA children's book out there in the market at the minute. So if you could check them out in the description down below, that'd be much appreciated. First of all, Liam, how's things with yourself? How's life? And how are you enjoying the championship? I'd imagine you're enjoying it pretty well as a Kerry man at the minute anyways.
Well, after the weekend anyway, look, it's after kicking off for us down here. So we're starting to get into the mood and get into the swing of things. No, but yeah, look, we're happy after Saturday night. No, the result went our way, and it was a funny enough game, all right, I suppose, with the whole build up towards this, and as they were trying to put it into the same bracket as Newbridge and Nowhere and Partney Ring and all this kind of stuff. But I do think Jack and the management and the county board probably played the cards right. They said nothing. Jack was going to play it anywhere. It didn't bother, and I suppose the supporters and all the media probably had a bit of fun with it, all right. But at the end of the day, Kerry had a job to do, and they went up, and I think they did it very, very professionally.
100%, yeah. And as you were saying there, was Cork 11 points, Kerry 23 points. I suppose overall, I'd imagine you were fairly happy with the result anyway. I mean, I suppose for large parts, you were by far the better side. You dominated the field of play, obviously. And even though David Clifford probably didn't have, maybe, he wasn't involved as previous games, probably shows Kerry's sort of depth in their squad that they have so many options all across the field.
Yeah, Aaron. And look, we knew when we were going up there that Cork were going to play defensively. And then when Sean Powter was named on the team, we knew, automatically, Sean was going to go back and he was going to sit in the pocket. And he did that, and he did it very well. And I think at half time, even around the press box, the talk from the Kerry supporters, and it was very unusual that it was great that we were getting a game. My first time in years, when you play Cork and Kerry, that the Kerry crowd were happy that, Jesus, we're getting a game here. And credit to Cork, they did put it up to us, for, you could say, for a good 40-45 minutes, which I was expecting anyway, to be honest. But I think our maturity, our experience, and I do think that we're probably a couple of years ahead of this Cork side at the moment, strength-wise, strength and conditioning-wise, and stuff like that. And I think that helped us. Plus our bench, and that's going back to our experience. Our bench was very strong again the weekend. David Moran came on, Paul Ganey came on, he kicked the first point from play. And it kind of settled things, and we finished very strong. And I think if you look at over the weekend, even all the higher, say, the Division 1 teams, they seem to be finishing a lot stronger than the lower division teams. And I think that was one of Kerry's main things the weekend. And look, it was two different ideas. Kerry were attacking, and Cork were trying to counter-attack. And the game that Cork were trying to play, it's a very nutritional kind of a game, and I didn't think at halftime that they could keep that going. They were breaking, they were turning us over, they were breaking down the field, and they were getting their frees. But it was very hard. It was very hard, and I think Kerry probably went in at halftime. They settled the ship, and the subs came on as well, gave us new legs. But overall, I think I think Jack would be very happy with that. But Aaron, the one thing I feel very strange about it is that for years, even growing up, going to Cork and Kerry matches, we were going into Partney Keeve or Killarney and 40,000 people at it. You had the marching band, you had a massive atmosphere. Coming out of the game the last day, the Cork supporters were happy. They were beat by 12 points, and it's something I still can't get my head around, really, because I know that if Kerry came out of the game beat by 12 points to Cork, I think there'd be a lot of questions asked down here. So that's the only thing that I kept. We need Cork down here strong, and Cork need Kerry strong, because look, it has been nearly 5 weeks since our National League final. It's going to be 3 weeks to the Munster final, where it's either going to be Limerick or Tipperary, and then a quarter final is going to be nearly 4 to 5 weeks again. So I think that's going to be Jack's biggest problem, is the gaps between the games and that little bit of rustiness.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I suppose, as you were saying there as well, in relation to the Cork and Kerry rivalry, it sort of reminds me of how the Dublin and Meath rivalry has gone, I suppose, down here. There used to be a huge rivalry down here between the two counties year in, year out. I mean, it was always very competitive. And then I suppose as the years went on, the rivalry faded. And even though Dublin, although Meath kind of pushed Dublin quite close last year, it felt like a bit of a moral victory for Meath. So I suppose as a show, maybe how sort of, I suppose, how much the fall of grace has been from Cork. I suppose the fact that, you know, a 12-point defeat and a good performance has almost been celebrated in some ways.
Exactly, and the thing about it, Darren, is that when Kerry won the 5 in a row minors that time, probably the second best team in the county at that time was Cork. You know, so they were never too far away from us at underage level, even at under 20 level. Only 2 weeks ago, we got a good game off them inside in Tralee. But whatever's happening when it comes to senior level, is it the strength and conditioning, or is it, or I don't know, they seem to be losing something. But that's the main thing that hit me the weekend when I was above in partnering and I looking around, and there was probably 10, just under 11,000 at it. You know, all that kind of stuff. I was kind of saying, look, is this the way football has gone now? Is no marching band? It wasn't on RTE. No, it was. There were always massive occasions. No, like you said there, I think the rivalry has died a small bit. All right, when it comes to games like that.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Kerry point of view in general, obviously, I suppose we were discussing there the options that they have in attack. Does it show so much about Kerry, the fact that David Clifford probably wasn't as involved as he was in, I suppose, a lot of the National League games, and yet you still had Tony Brosnan, obviously, who gave a big performance. You had Stephen O'Brien in there. You had Paul Gainey, who obviously came off the bench as well. Like, it really does show the options you have all across the pitch, really.
Having David Clifford on the field, Aaron, is going to draw 2 to 3 defenders at times. So that's when we're going to be looking at the Tony Brosnans, the Paul Gainey's, the Stephen O'Briens and all these guys to step up to the plate, because there is going to be free men, and I think that's we can't throw all our eggs into the basket with David Clifford, because there is going to be games where he's going to be held. There is going to be games where he's not going to be kicking points from 40 or 50 yards out. So that's when we need guys stepping up to the plate. And I thought Tony Brosnan in the first half, when there was options there that we couldn't break down the Cork defence, he was jinking inside. He won a couple of frees in order to settle us, to keep the scoreboard ticking over. We have a half-hour line there as well. Probably one of our second best player in the team, Shawnee Shea. Down here, a lot of people are saying he was quiet. I think he still kicked with the 6-7 points. A lot of them from frees, but his work rate and stuff like that is immense. And Adrian Spillane, and another guy that's really I think he's I saw something during the week that he's probably the oldest guy in the team now at the moment, is Stephen O'Brien, and he has really come into life and really added that power and pace. But what I like about him now, Aaron, is that the old Stephen O'Brien was putting the head down and he was heading towards the corner with the ball. He's not doing that anymore. He's looking up. He's given the 1-2 and he's running. So that comes, I suppose, with a lot of credit to the Kerry management. The way they're handling players and and Paul Gainey, new lease of life as well. Like, people are down here and saying Paul is flying, and he is flying. So, and that comes from, I suppose, camaraderie. It comes from the training. It comes from the management team. So everything that Jack is doing right, and everything that Jack is doing in the management at the moment, he's doing it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and I suppose, because we were saying there as well in regards to the Kerry obviously getting that big victory, but obviously there was a bit of criticism, I've seen on Twitter and from other people. And for me, it's all nonsense, really, because I didn't really get the whole point behind it, really, saying maybe Kerry didn't play as good as they did, or they were overly defensive, or a lot of men behind the ball and everything else. What was your sort of thoughts on that? Because for myself personally, really, I think at the end of the day, every team has different ways to win games, and for years Kerry were being slated because of their defensive problems. They seem to have fixed that now, and now all of a sudden it's, and their attack is still there. He still scored 23 points, I think maybe only 4 or 5 wides in the game. So the criticism did seem a little strange in my opinion.
Yeah. If you have watched the games over the league campaign, you could see Kerry were building a kind of a template of the way they want to play. We're not getting 15 men behind the ball, but our half forwards and our midfielders are really working hard. And I mean, and if you saw Diarmuid O'Connor, who got man of the match, in some of the tackles, our tackling has improved dramatically. The old Kerry tackle was the hand in and give away a free, or else a man would break through the hand and he was gone through on goals. We're meeting guys now with our body, and we're standing them up. No, as I said last night on Radio Kerry, that it's like Seamus Moynihan, one of our greatest defenders ever. If you met Seamus Moynihan, you were meeting him with your chest, with his chest, and he was pushing you backwards. And what's happening is Kerry are doing that now, and the minute the opposition are stopped, you have another one or two Kerry defenders, or a midfielder, or a half hour coming in, and next thing we might have three fellas around the ball. So the good thing, and the thing that I like about it, is that, right, you can do that and you can play a half hour line deep, but your transition, and I think our transition from defence to forwards, up to the forwards, has been very good all year. And I think that's going to be a really good plus for us, because when you have the likes of David Clifford and Tony Brosnan and Sean Shea up front and all these guys that can score for you, the last thing you want to do is be slow and cumbersome coming up the field with the ball and letting defenders get back in front of them. And I think Kerry, but by all means, Kerry can slow it as well. Like when Cork had the ball, when Kerry had the ball the last day and Cork had a lot of defenders, we weren't like the old Kerry would try to hit a pass through like an Ivan Eagle and it'd be intercepted. We were patient. We draw frees, like people were saying. Sean Shea kicked all the frees, David Clifford kicked all the frees, but that came from being patient and drawing a free. If there's nothing on, your next option is hit the gap and try to get a free. And I think Kerry did that the weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I think the patience that Kerry showed really throughout the game, definitely, what because I remember even in 2019 at times when you seen Kerry even up against the Dubs in that replay, and even obviously in 2020 as well, 2021, there was probably an element of Kerry where their play was maybe a little bit rushed at times, maybe a little bit too forceful, a bit too over the top. Almost reminded me a bit of sort of Jim Gavin in the early sort of 2013, 2014, up until that Donegal result. So I'd imagine seeing those sort of differences as a Kerry man yourself, like, bodes well and bodes a lot of positives going into the All-Ireland series, especially when you start coming up against, your Tyrones, Mayos or Dublins along the way.
Yeah, and we know our teams, and the Kerry management know our teams are going to try to swarm back in defence and stop David Clifford, and so Kerry are building towards that, and I do think like you hit the nail on the head there, that we don't want to be trying to give away the ball, and I think the weekend proved that against Cork. Even though a lot of Kerry supporters were saying, like, even up to today, I had a couple of guys saying Sean Shea was quiet, David Clifford was quiet, but between them they kicked all the frees. And I think that came from patience that we won. Like, if you can't be trying to get a ball through the Ivan Eagle every time. And I think maturity. I think this Kerry team have matured. They've experienced, and I think Jack coming on board probably was the right man, because Jack has been there. He has done that, and he has settled it with Paddy Talley, Damon Murphy, and Michal Quirk. Fantastic football men. They've fantastic brains for football. And you could see, even after our league campaign, I was very happy after the league campaign. And I think the league doesn't lie. And you could see from all the championship results at the moment, bar probably Derry and Tyrone, everything else probably goes to nearly league standards on the table when you look at them. The teams, the gaps between teams. And I think that's the big thing Kerry are pushing on from the league.
Yeah, and I suppose from a core point of view then, obviously, as we were saying before, a 12-point defeat, but there certainly were positives to take. Look, as we were saying in the first half, they were very competitive. They certainly pushed Kerry maybe a lot more than people expected. I think a lot of people were thinking that this one would maybe be over after, half time or whatever. And certainly it was a little bit closer up until sort of the final 10 to 15 minutes. So would you give them much hope going into the qualifiers? I mean, it'd be tough for them, obviously, with Tyrone in there, Armagh there, Mayo in there. But, like, how do you reckon they'll get on in there?
It'll be lots to be down to the draw, I guess. But I suppose the last day as well, they lost their goalkeeper early, which probably didn't help. And I think today is it Kevin Flav, who will mark in David Clifford, is gone for the year. He'd have to pick it up an injury, so he's a huge loss to him. Ian Maguire, you could see it the last day in the middle of the field, one hand. Was it a mistake playing Ian Maguire? I suppose they needed a spiritual leader around the middle of the field, but you could see he was struggling with one hand. Even when he was competing, he went down maybe a couple of times with it as well, but he kept going. Fair play to him. So a lot will depend on their injuries. They will probably take. I think they will probably take a bit of a boost from the Kerry game. But at the same time, I think it'll be down to the draw. If they draw the Mayos or the Tyrones and these guys, I think they will struggle.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, and I suppose, yeah, you've seen how leaky that defense was throughout the league as well. So you can only imagine what a Mayo or Tyrone would want to do. Obviously, responding from defeats of their own as well. I suppose for the Kingdom, just the small matter of either Limerick or Tipperary in the Munster final. I'm sure you're very worried going up against either a Limerick or a Tipperary.
No, I know Billy Lee very well with Limerick, and he has a fantastic job done with Limerick in the last couple of years. Billy is a GM man. You know, you couldn't meet a better GM man. What he's done for Limerick is just incredible altogether. And look, they'll enjoy it if they get over Tipperary. They'll enjoy the month. Either Tipperary or Limerick will enjoy it. Look, it's going to be a Munster final. Like Tipperary have a couple of all-stars in their team. It's not as if they're no mids. No, so it's going to be on in Killarney. I think it's a Saturday that it's on at 3:00 on a Saturday. There'll be a big crowd. There'll be a big Kerry crowd of it. Hopefully the sun will be shining, and we hope that Kerry will come out and do what Kerry do. Like I said at the start of the show, and I think our biggest problem, and that's going to be ahead of us, is the big gaps between the games. The National League showed that week in, week out, when you were playing games, fellas are up to the tempo of it. You're getting better. It's just the gaps. Like we're going to have, I think it's 12 weeks. We're going to 3 games in 12 weeks. That's if we get to the quarter final, which is it's very hard. So I think the teams going through the back door. We discussed it the weekend, a couple of us, and the teams going through the back door will have an advantage in this, because they might have the caliber of games, but they'll have games before they meet the likes of the Kerry and the Dublins and these teams.
Yeah, it's all about momentum, isn't it? And you seen it with Tyrone last year. I mean, when they had a lot of games coming through the Ulster Championship, and then obviously progressing into the All Ireland series as well, like with the tougher games. So it's an interesting point of view, all right? Because I'm sure if you chatted to a lot of Tyrone fans or Armagh fans or Derry fans, they'd probably say, well, it's a lot tougher for us, and we've much tougher games. Maybe we'd love to be on the easier kind of side of the draw and looking at how handy it is for Kerry. But I suppose when you look at it from your point of view, like you can see, I suppose, both sides of the coin.
Exactly, yeah. And a lot of fellas, when I said that to a couple of fellas now in the last 24 hours, fellas saying, look at Dublin, what they did with the last couple of years. Yeah, look at Dublin. But like Dublin has maybe 3 and 4 games, even though they're beating teams well in Leinster. They had, whereas we're probably only getting 1 and 2 games. And next thing we're straight into an All-Ireland semi-final and All-Ireland quarter-final. So it's look, we know the new championship and all this is coming up, but I do think the league format is fantastic. It gauges. Look, we'll talk about Leitrim there soon. It gives teams chances in playing against teams that who they can go out and win against. Whereas Kerry now, like I said, are going to be over in Corns for the next 12 weeks, preparing for a quarter. You could say prepare for Munster final first, then quarter final. It's a lot of training for very little games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose we were chatting there about Leitrim, but we'll get onto them in a brief moment. With Donegal 216, Cavan 16 points. I have to say, like a very spirited effort by the Cavan men. They certainly gave as good as they had it. And I mean, on another day, they could probably feel a little bit unlucky. Obviously, those 2 goals sort of came out of the blue, really. It wasn't like they were brilliantly worked goals or anything like that. And I suppose for a team that was promoted to Division 4 or promoted from Division 4, and obviously Donegal, who are in Division 1, I mean, it was a much more competitive game than people expected.
Kind of raised eyebrows when we were watching it and hearing the result. I suppose they needed that little bit of luck. I think Donegal got the luck with the goals. Look, Cavan won Division 4. I think there's nearly 21 teams of a difference between Donegal and Cavan. And when you look at the league tables, so it was going into it. I suppose Donegal were hot favourites, but it's like the Leinster, the Ulster Championship. Anyone can beat anyone up there on a given day, and Cavan nearly proved that. I think the one thing you do need when you're a lower team like that and you're meeting a bigger team is that you try to stay with them as long as you can, and hopefully sneak probably a goal or 2 near the end. And I think that's what Donegal did instead of Cavan doing it. Cavan stayed in the game. They played very well, but Donegal got that, I suppose, the look of the hop, and they got the 2 goals that kind of pushed them on.
Yeah, because even Paddy Lynch's performance as well in the first half was
Yeah,
exceptional, and Cavan in general, like they didn't really miss too many opportunities. I mean, the majority of their efforts were going over the bar, and really at one stage, I think a lot of people were probably thinking Cavan could go on and win this game. But looking at Paddy Lynch, I mean, where does he rank amongst some of the best forwards in the country at the minute? Because I think he's really starting to put himself in the conversation. I think he's only 22 as well, so
yeah.
definitely putting himself in and around the mix, anyways.
Yeah, I think he kicks 6 points. Very stylish footballer. Like we always say, when you meet fellas, the likes of Paddy Lynch. If he was down here in Kerry, he'd probably be on the Kerry team. Like counties out there, it's the same. There's a couple of guys in Limerick, a couple of guys in Clare. They're like exceptional footballers all over the country. But yeah, Paddy gave an exhibition last day. But I suppose, look, that little bit of experience, playing at a higher level as well, Donegal probably boded well for him. Jamie Brennan chipping in with, I think it was 1-4. I think he came in with McBurty, Murphy, and these guys. A lot of experience there, Aaron. I think that was their tint. That was their tint. This will be their tint Ulster final in 12 seasons. That shows where Donegal are, and Cavan really put it up to them and gave him a bit of a fright. So Cavan will be no pushover in the qualifiers.
Are Donegal now the favourites for the Ulster Championship, do you think, going into that final against either Derry or Monaghan? I mean, it'd be a very tough game, be a very close game, and I think a lot of neutrals will certainly be excited for.
Either Monaghan or Derry, but I was very impressed with Derry against Tyrone, and it was funny because we had a guy on the radio, I think about before the championship started, and he tipped Derry to beat Tyrone, and they were like, geez, they were exceptional against Tyrone in the first round. So I think if they can get over Monaghan, which is a kind of a banana skin as well for them, I think they won't fear Donegal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose you were saying there about Cavan going into the qualifiers. I think they're actually going into the Tailteann Cup, interestingly enough, because they're obviously a Division 4 team. But I mean, I was going to ask you about that anyway. I mean, it is a bit interesting because you look at how well they played against Donegal, and if they were in the qualifiers, like they would fancy their chances. So I mean, what's your sort of thoughts on them going into the Tailteann Cup and not the qualifiers? I suppose you make your bed, you lie in it, and obviously they got promoted down to Division 4 for a reason. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I suppose Cavan, and even their history down through the years, they were always good for an upset in the Super 8s or the backdoor system and stuff like that. So it's kind of a pity for them that they're not in the qualifiers. But I think I saw a couple of articles today. Their manager who said that they're really going to go at this Tailteann Cup hell for leather. So I think a victory, if whoever, I think that's going to be a great competition for teams, because they're going to be playing teams their own level, and every team that will be inside it will think they can win it. Whereas at the moment, to be honest, Aaron, there are many teams in Sam Maguire who can put up their hand and say we have a chance at winning this, bar 5 or 6, probably I'd say 5, to be honest. So I do think Cavan will give that Tailteann Cup a good run for its money. But look, in the other side of it, when you're playing the bigger teams, it was like Cork playing Kerry the weekend. They had nothing to lose. It was easy to put up a barrier and put up a good fight, and no matter what you were going to do, you were going to get a clap in the back. And Cavan were much the same against Donegal. No matter what was going to happen, if they put up a good performance, they were always going to get a clap in the back, whether they won or lost. So it's going to be a good competition, that Tailteann Cup, when all the teams are going to be put into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've seen in Division 3, and I mean, how competitive it is really amongst all the teams. Like, you obviously had Louth, who came up, got promoted. Limerick were a Division 4 team a couple of seasons ago as well. So really, really competitive amongst all the teams, really. So, like, going into that, really, like, between Cavan and obviously maybe if it's Tipperary, if they get beaten in the semi-finals, I mean, a lot of teams will really fancy their chance going into that.
Oh, they will, yeah. Look, it's like I said at the start, the league doesn't lie. So if you take maybe the top 7 to 8 teams out of Division 1, I think anything from there down on a given day, any team could beat anyone, that kind of a way, because they're all training just as hard as each other. They all have the young Lynches, and like every team has a young Lynch. They have a stylish forwards, and stuff like that. And so I do think that it's going to be a lot depending on why counties will look at it as well. I know, like the Cavan manager said, they're going to really put their shoulder for the wheel behind it to see could they win it. Are the rest of the teams going to do the same? You're hitting towards summer now as well. Our counties are going to keep guys from staying home from America and staying home from these places. So the first year of it now, and I hope that the GAA kind of campaign it well and make it a competition that's important. I see down here now with the hurling as well, with the competition that Kerry and the Joe McDonough. There's always a good buzz about it. Kerry are always very competitive in it, and they always try to win it. You would hear people talking about it. So, and that's at lower level hurling. So I hope they do the same now with the football. That there's something there for them, that they really have a good crack at it.
100%, yeah. And I suppose before we finish up on Donegal, I mean, you're obviously mentioning the influence of Jamie Brennan, obviously kicking 4 points. You had Michael Murphy with 5, Paddy McBrearty with 1-4. And as you were saying there with Donegal, like 10 Ulster finals in 12 years. I mean, they've been dominant really in the Ulster province, and obviously have won All-Ireland to show for in 2012, an All-Ireland final appearance in 2014. But there does seem to be that hoodoo over them in the last sort of 5 years or so, where they can't quite get to All-Ireland semi-finals or beyond that. Do you think maybe this could be the year where they finally do break that sort of hoodoo going into, if they come out of Ulster and come out of qualifiers, etc.?
Yeah, look, I suppose Michael Murphy isn't getting any younger. When I saw him inside here in the league in Killarney the day we played him inside, I thought they were poor, to be honest. I don't know what way their preparation was. I know I don't think Jamie Brennan was there that day. McBrearty was there, but they didn't look a team that were coming together. But like that, it's championship time now. If they win Ulster, you never know. Like any team, once they get to a quarter final, it's only one game at a time. Then you could say you're only 2 games away from Northern Ireland. So I think any team that will get to a quarter final will fancy their chances. Like if you can get an upset, you never know. It's like Tyrone last year. You never know where it can carry you. But Donegal won't be like they are going to be in a quarter final. So I wouldn't write them off just yet, because when you have McBrearty and Jamie Brennan and these guys and Ryan McHugh and Murphy and if they're all firing, they're going to be a hard team to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose before we finish up on the senior football action, anyway, it was Galway 420, Leitrim 9 points. I mean, I think everyone kind of really coming into this game felt that the Galway were going to be the side that would come out here. Obviously, I mean, every dog on the street very much knew that, and I was kind of keeping an eye on the scoreline of this on the Score BO app, and it was 10 points to 5 at half time for Galway, and you were hoping it was going to be a competitive game. But for Galway in general, like, I mean, all their goals came from off the bench. I think they scored nearly more off the bench than they did from their starting 15, which is certainly an unusual statistic. But I'm not too sure really how to discuss this game, really, because you see a scoreline like this, and unfortunately we seem to be getting these in the championship just far too often at this stage.
Yeah, this is where the big gulf in probably the divisions, and like you have a Division 2 champions playing a team that I think finished 4th or 5th in Division 4. Yeah, but when we were looking at it, like you were after I think 20 minutes, it was 5 points to 4. Half time, the score wasn't too bad. 10 was it 10 points to 5 or 10 points to 4 or something at half time. So it wasn't going to be a walkover. I think Andy Moran. I think if you were Andy Moran at that stage, you were going into the dressing room and you'd be quite happy with it. Galway came out, and I think that's where the bigger teams kind of push on as well. And that's where Kerry pushed on. That's where Donegal probably pushed on against Cavan as well. It's the latter stages of the game, whether it's the strength and conditioning or the fitness, or probably playing at a higher level as well. Probably helps because your bench is stronger, everything is stronger, and teams like Leitrim, you try to hang on as long as you can, but sometimes you just can't. You can't go to the 70th minute.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make, all right. And I was going to say that as well, like, because I think we've seen a a common theme really this weekend, really between Donegal's victory over Cavan, Kerry's victory over Cork, and obviously this victory as well from Galway over Leitrim, where we've seen games that were competitive really for 35 minutes, obviously on different levels. This Galway game sort of, I suppose, became an annihilation a lot quicker than the other two games, and obviously at different levels. But is it conditioning, or is it maybe just opposition teams maybe sort of, I suppose, realising the game is gone and heads drop and all the rest? Or, are these teams just, are the benches just far better, or what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, a bit of everything. The game Saturday night with Kerry, it was the bench, but it was the strength and conditioning as well. It was basically, if you keep getting hit by stronger guys, it is going to wear you down. And I think that showed over the weekend. The Donegals, the Galways, the Kerrys, they're all stronger, they're fitter. But plus, and it's kind of an old thing that's there, Arnold, that the higher up the league table you're playing football. This is going back to the leagues again. I think that's where the league table never lies. If you're playing Division 1 football, you're playing at a high standard. So everything is done faster. Everything is done quicker. You have to be at a certain fitness and a certain strength. And if you're not, you won't make the team, or you won't be able to compete. So that's why all the higher teams are probably after. There's a big gulf there between the Division 1 teams and probably the lower teams. And I do think, look, I always said it, that if people were saying, oh, we should have Cork beat, or they should have beat by half time. If I put a team together down here in Kerry this minute, I could put 15 fellas together, and if I went into Kildare and played the Kerry team, I'd put up a good performance for 40 minutes anyway. You will, because you keep everyone behind the ball, you'd slow it down, you'd fall down the ground, you'd wear down the clock. But it's the last 10 or 15 minutes is where the good teams will push on. Dublin did it for years. They did it against us in All-Ireland finals. They beat us in the last 10 minutes. I don't know how many games. It was the last 10 minutes of so many games that they beat us in. And that's where good teams push on.
Absolutely, yeah. And Porrick Farrelly says here, Galway to win Connacht title. I mean, would you fancy them going up against Roscommon? I mean, that is going to be a very close game, very tough game as well. I mean, and certainly, obviously, Roscommon haven't beaten Galway twice already this year, so they'll be going in, obviously, feeling that they have a good chance. But obviously, Galway might be going in as slight favourites. I mean, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think they'll be going in as slight favourites. Us down in Kerry here, we're always good Galway supporters, because we love the way they play football. They're kind of natural footballers, but you got to give credit to Roscommon as well, what they've done in the last couple of years. They've been up in Division 1 and they're holding their own, and then they come down and they go up again. They're never too far away, and they're dogged. And this is a kind of a local derby, and it's like all interprovincials, Roscommon, Galway. It'll bring out the best of both teams. But I would slightly fancy Galway, but they will have to be hitting the tune, because if they don't, Roscommon aren't going to hand it to them that easy.
Yeah, and for Leitrim, I mean, obviously it's going to be tough for them going into the Tailteann Cup after such a heavy defeat. I mean, I feel like they've made a lot of progress under Andy Moran this year. They've obviously got Emlyn Mulligan back in the side. They've got Ryan O'Rourke back playing. A few young lads coming through. Their under 20s gave a good display in the Connacht Championship this year as well. I mean, how much of a knock of their confidence could that be going into the Tailteann Cup? And I suppose it's one of them things, because you see even Wexford, for example, who got absolutely annihilated by Dublin. I mean, it can't be much sort of, motivation wise there going into the Tailteann Cup after such a heavy beating.
But I suppose what Andy Moran will probably do is try to take the best parts out of the game last day, and that's why the Tailteann Cup is there, because I think it'll be a lot easier trying them Tuesday night, because Thursday night, because you're heading towards a game that you can win, no matter who you draw now in the Tailteann Cup. I think realistically, Leitrim went into that game the weekend knowing they weren't going to win it, whereas this competition will give teams like Leitrim, God, yeah, we can beat these guys. No, we can beat this team. We won't be too far away. Whereas the weekend, if you hold your hand up, you like even the Leitrim players themselves, they were going out to try to hold the score down more than, like, they won last Thursday night of training. They weren't saying we're going to go out and beat Galway by 7 or 8 points. But this week they can knuckle down and say, look, whoever we draw in this competition, they're not going to be much better than us.
Yeah, I suppose we'll move on to the two under-20 semi-finals. Yeah, Tyrone 114, Kerry 112. As I was saying to you off air, I was watching this game for about 30, 40 minutes before I turned it over to watch the Limerick Tipperary game in the hurling. And I suppose it was going well for Kerry for large parts, but I suppose up stepped another young Canavan coming through, and Rory Canavan, and Tyrone with obviously a lot of other young stars in there as well, not just Rory Canavan, but they pulled through, and another big victory, just like when they beat Cavan in that Ulster final as well.
Exactly. It was a game I was at myself. A very entertaining second half. First half, I think Kerry we had a bit of a breeze behind us, and I will give credit to Tyrone. They marshalled out probably our strongest line very well. Like, our strongest line would have been our half forward line. They did a lot of damage against Cork in the Munster final. You had Evan Looney, who got man of the match, Killian Burke, who was a fantastic talent as well. Guys that can run with the ball, Keith Evans, Thomas O'Donnell. These are all lively, good footballers, and Tyrone can nullify them. And what they did is they got the ball, but when the Kerry man had it, said when Keith Evans and when all these guys got on the ball, they were hit hard, and Tyrone wore us down. And in the second half, it kind of hurted us. All our guys, our man of the match had to be taken off. Our man of the match in the Munster final was taken off. Killian Burke, every time even though he got on a pile of ball, he was hit hard, and they marshalled him well. But yeah, it was a fantastic second half. There were two opposite kind of games. The first half was very kind of defensive, but the second half was great open football. Both teams went at it. They attacked. Kerry were unlucky. They got the goal. They went up, I think, the 4 points. But Tyrone never gave up. They kept chipping away. And that man that you mentioned there, Rory Canavan, he's going to be a guy that we're going to be hearing a lot about in the next 12 months. You could actually see him on the panel with the Tyrone seniors even before the year is out. He is that good. Just like his dad, just like his brother. Very stylish. I think the one ball that he kicked wrong, it hit the upright, and they got the goal off it. We were kind of saying, Jesus, why didn't he kick it over the bar? Why didn't he go over? But it was just one of those things. And when they got their nose ahead, and just like any Tyrone team, when they get the nose ahead and they smell blood, you aren't going to come away too easy with it.
Yeah, I was going to say that to you as well, because obviously with Rory Canavan, I mean, he'd actually be eligible to play for Tyrone this year in the qualifiers. Obviously, he got that under-20 rule, but of course he hasn't played for the seniors yet, which is why he's obviously playing for the under-20s at the minute. But he would actually be eligible to come into the seniors by the time the qualifiers comes around. So could he be on the panel? Maybe could he get a spot on the panel? Maybe on the bench, or would Brian Dooher and Fergal Logan risk it? Maybe they might kind of want to wrap him up in cotton wool for next year.
To me, the boy is good enough to be on a panel. Definitely, I'd be bringing him on the panel. Whether he'll play is another thing, but I think having him there for the experience of the whole thing, I think you'd make him a better player for next year, and that's why I do think you might see him on the panel in Croke Park at the latter stages of the championship. But in the other side of it, there was two other guys on the half forward line with him as well, young Brogue and Conor Crush. Between the three of them, the half forward line, they kick 113. These guys can play football. And they had a guy in full forward. He was like a man mountain, Michael McGlennon. I think if people saw him the time he took off in the first half on a run, and he kicked a fantastic point, but he just ran over it. It was John Olomo kind of job, and he just there was no stopping him. But this Tyrone team will take beating. I know the Kildare boys are going to be having their homework done, but I was impressed with them now after the game. To be honest, I thought they were very well organised. Look, Owen Mulligan and Devlin with them as well. They're not slouches. They know what the game's about, and they will take beating in this final.
Yeah, they seem to be consistently getting a lot of things right at underage level. And Porrick says here again, Tyrone going for their 12th county underage All-Ireland since 1991, best underage structures in the country. And that's exactly the point, isn't it? Because you've got, you'd have a lot of counties in there that would be bigger than Tyrone. They'd have more population, maybe, more resources, all the rest. And some counties do produce at underage level, but sometimes that doesn't transition into senior level. But for Tyrone, just consistently year in, year out, whether it's at minor level, whether it's at under 20 level, and they're not winning every All Ireland. I mean, obviously they were beaten in the minor All Ireland final last year by Meath, but they seem to be always thereabouts at both grades.
Yeah, you can see their structures and even their academy above as well. Their centre of excellence, everything is, and it's something that we're doing down here as well. Now I know we won our 5 minor All-Irelands. It's the under 20 that's kind of escaping us at the moment. Now a lot of people down here are saying, "Yeah, sure, we're still pulling them through to the seniors." I think now it would be nice if we could pull maybe 1 or 2 under 20 titles, just to kind of keep the natives happy down here anyway. But oh yeah, Tyrone have been fantastic down through the years, and it shows. Look, they're All Ireland champions. So they are doing something right. All Ireland senior champions. They're in an under 20 final. So yeah, everything is going in the right direction up there anyway.
Yeah, and another county that has done well at underage level in the past couple of years, obviously won a 28, I think it was the under 20 All Ireland in 2018, I think it was. So a 5-point win over Sligo. They obviously beat Dublin in the Leinster final. They beat the reigning champions Offaly in the semi-finals as well. So look, I mean, Kildare will take some beating going into that final.
They will, because they're like most Kildare teams, very athletic, strong runners, because that was a good Sligo team they played. They were tough, they were dogged. Sligo I think they were down 4 points at one stage and 5 points, and they came back, but Kildare pushed on then again, and that's a sign of a very good team. So this battle between Tyrone and Kildare will be one to watch. But yeah, there's a lot of big boys in that Kildare team as well. Like you said, they're only freshly after winning in under 20 only a couple of years ago. So they want to, and they got the likes of Highland and all that out of that team. So they're doing something right with their underage structure as well, because they're in an under 20 final, and their senior team is after. I know they were demoted, but they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right, because obviously you look at Kildare, obviously having beaten the Dubs in obviously this year in the league, sadly enough, but obviously got that victory in Newbridge, and you're looking at some of the young lads that have come into the team already, and Jimmy Hyland, Dara Kirwan, Paddy Woodgate, who started this year, has looked very good. Daniel Flynn, of course, as well, and now you've obviously got this other crop of under 20 players coming through, and maybe you might make the case that some of Dublin's players are slightly getting older, and maybe the same level of underage players isn't quite there that was there 5-6 years ago. So you could argue the case in the next couple of years that Kildare are very well best placed to finally, it might not be this year, it might not be next year, but in the next couple of years, they could very well be the team that might finally end this long run of the Dubs winning Leinster titles.
Exactly, and the arrow is pointing in that direction, but it doesn't just happen because of that. There has to be a lot of work put in, but you can see the management that they have at senior level. The management that they have at level, they are putting a lot of work in there. Probably the thing that is egging them is what you just said, is that they could see Dublin on a bit of a decline, so they can see they're probably tasting blood for a Leinster Championship this year. They won't be too far away from it. They drew with us in the first round of the league this year and probably should have beaten us above there. So I think they were unlucky to go down. And so it's if they win this game the weekend, I think it'll be a massive boost to them heading towards the Leinster Championship at senior level, because they have a crop of young players in there at the moment, and they have, like we said, these guys coming along now to push it on a little bit further. So, and the same for Tyrone. Like Tyrone, you could say the same, because they're All Ireland champions. They have 25 young fellas now that are pushing. Right, they're trying to hold their hand up and saying, "Look, we're in an All Ireland final. If we win this, I want to be inside with Brian Dooher and the boys as well." So yeah, it's going in the right direction for Tyrone and Kildare. All right, if once they can carry it forward, because it's a hard age group. I think at under 20 level now, there is a gap between 20 and seniors. Now, back in our day, I can remember we won in All Ireland in '98, and we were already playing with seniors that time. You don't see that anymore. I know they're not allowed anyway, but you don't see a 20-year-old that's just out of under 20s falling into a senior team. Very rarely, exceptional David Clifford, Jimmy Highland, you would have exceptional one or two, all right, like that. But when, like, I was thinking back, who was telling us the weekend, I think when we won in 98, out of our team that beat Laois, I think there was 5 of us in with the senior squad that time. So it's I know times have changed, but it does help, all right. It does help.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. You make there, all right. And I suppose with this under-20 final, I mean, interesting enough, obviously a little bit of controversy surrounding obviously the venue and where the final is going to be played. Obviously, at this moment in time, anyway, it's fixed for Carrick-on-Shannon in Leitrim. There was talk it was going to be moved to Breffni Park in Cavan. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's interesting because obviously 3 of the last 4 finals have been in Croke Park. And as far as what I know, anyways, there isn't anything on in Croke Park on Saturday. I don't think there's any concerts or Ed Sheeran or anything like that. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Should it be played in Croke Park or what do you reckon?
Well, look, everyone wants to play in Croke Park. That's the pinnacle. Whether you're under 12, whether you're primary school games, everyone wants to play in Croke Park. And I think Croke Park was the place for it. Even if Dublin were in it, I do still think Croke Park was the place for it. And my other gripe with it is, what's the hurry with it? They played 2 semi-finals last weekend, and we're rushing into a final now again just to get it. They could have given them a week. What would have been wrong with maybe playing 3 games, a triple header with the Leinster Championship, played All Ireland final before us. They've done it before with different games. I wouldn't see. They could have pushed the times out a bit, or played the Saturday before that. And I think that it's something. It seems to be a competition that even with the last couple of years that they're just trying to play and just get it out of the way. I think it's very unfair for management teams. Or if a young guy picked up an injury last weekend, he could lose out in an All Ireland final because you've only a week to get ready. So I think that it's, in one way, it's kind of unfair. And going back to your question, I do think it's Croke Park is where you want to be playing. It's the biggest competition at that level. It should be inside in your biggest stadium. Everyone wants to play in Croke Park, and under 20s are no different to seniors.
Yeah, it's a strange one, all right. I mean, I'm not too sure why they are rushing it so much, because I mean, like, there's so much time left. I mean, they could play in a couple of weeks. Obviously some counties like some senior teams haven't even gotten into their provincial finals yet. Some semi-finals haven't even been played. So it does seem a little strange. Why do you think they have rushed it so? I mean, like, any reason you can come up with why they're rushing it so quickly and putting it on next Saturday and seemingly want to get over and done with so quickly?
Yeah, I just can't understand it, whether it's gone back to club football or what. Like, but I know someone did say that, look, it's for exams. The leaving cert is going to be starting in 6 to 7, 8 weeks time and all this kind of stuff. But they could have brought it forward a week or two. Start the competition a week or two earlier and play it in. But I think this rushing, even the weekend, it kind of Kerry were out on Saturday night. They were expecting the Kerry fans to go up to Laois on Sunday. It was. Yeah, I just do think that it's a bit rushed, and I think what I feel sorry for is the players themselves. Look, the players will play an All Ireland final out in the car park. They don't care. Once they put on the county jersey, that's their main aim. But I think that it would be very hard for management if to get teams right. You're after a hard All Ireland semi-final. Jesus, they could have given them 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks. Like the Kerry seniors, like I said, we'll have 3 games in 12 weeks. So we have 3 weeks to Munster final, and we'll have 4 weeks to quarter final. Surely they could find time to fit in an All Ireland under 20 final somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And obviously you feel sorry for Kildare fans as well. We'll have to travel all the way down to Leitrim, to Carrick-on-Shannon, and then obviously have a Leinster final or a Leinster semi-final, obviously in Croke Park the next day as well. So certainly a lot of travelling for the sport as well. Look, listen, Liam, very much appreciate you jumping on and obviously sharing your opinion on the Kerry footballers and all this weekend's action. So, much appreciated. Cheers for coming on.
No bother. Cheers.